Oh, these people just never learn. Senator Tim Scott hit President Biden and progressives Tuesday over their response to the terrorist attacks by Hamas in Israel. While Hamas carried out these attacks, Joe Biden has blood on his hands, Scott said in an address at the Hudson Institute. His weakness invited the attack. His cash giveaway to Iran helped fund terrorism. After the attack, his administration suggested Israel should stand down. It's a disgrace, the presidential candidate continued. A deal in September between the Biden administration and Iran, in which the U.S. transferred $6 billion in frozen Iran oil proceeds to Iran as part of a prisoner exchange agreement, has come under renewed scrutiny in the wake of Hamas's attacks. Officials have pushed back on criticism of the deal, which made the money available for limited humanitarian transactions. Secretary of State Antony Blinken on Sunday disputed unsubstantiated claims that the Iran assets may have helped pay for terror attacks against the Gaza Strip, telling ABC's This Week that not a single dollar from that account has actually been spent to date. Scott went on to criticize progressive members of Congress, including Representatives Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Rashida Tlaib, Ilhan Omar, and Cori Bush, for their responses to the attacks and conflicts in the region. The far left in this country has become incredibly hostile to the state of Israel. The most extreme statements have become a daily routine. They even dabble openly in anti-Semitism, Scott said. But President Biden will not stand up to them because he cares more about his own power. Radical liberals are choosing their own political power over peace, he said. They would rather invite attacks on our allies than stand up to the fringe in their own party. It's a cowardice that makes them complicit. It has to stop. Scott's remarks came shortly after Biden delivered his televised address to the nation on Tuesday condemning the attacks by Hamas. In this moment, we must be crystal clear. We stand with Israel, Biden said in remarks from the White House, and we will make sure Israel has what it needs to take care of its citizens, defend itself, and respond to this attack. There's no justification for terrorism. There's no excuse. Biden said that American citizens are among those being held hostage by Hamas, and said the number of Americans killed in the terrorist attack has risen to 14. The Israeli death toll from Hamas attack has surpassed 1,000. Authorities in Gaza and the West Bank say 850 people have been killed in fighting there, according to the Associated Press. Biden has spoken with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu 3 times since the attacks. Additionally, he has met with National Security Team each day since the crisis began Saturday. And the U.S. and European allies put out a statement on Monday affirming support for Israel. Secretary of State Antony Blinken is set to travel to Israel this week. The administration has also repositioned military assets to the region. Meanwhile, some progressive lawmakers have condemned the violence on both sides of the conflict, but have criticized Israel's treatment of Palestinian civilians. Ooh, big mistake. Over the weekend, the New York City chapter of Democratic Social of America sponsored a pro-Palestinian rally that took place in Manhattan on Sunday. Prominent New York Democrats, including Governor Kathy Hochul, New York City Mayor Eric Adams, and Representative Richie Torres, have condemned the rally. In a statement on Monday, Ocasio-Cortez condemned what she called the bigotry and callousness seen at the rally. In his remarks on Tuesday, Scott called for the progressive members of Congress to condemn the Democratic Socialists of America or be expelled from Congress. Every member of the squad should either quit the DSA and repudiate the people who are cheering on deadly terrorism, or they must be expelled from Congress. Where do we start? I guess we can go in chronological order. Where Scott says, while Hamas had carried out these attacks, Joe Biden has blood on his hands. Whether you agree with the money that was given to Iran, I'm really not against it, because I'm not against people countries having transactions with each other in exchange for goods. But whether you agree with that or not, you have to understand there's no proof that that money had anything to do with this attack. There's no evidence whatsoever that Iran was involved with it's what you have here is a cavalcade of a lot of lawmakers, both from the Democratic Party, Republican Party, are very, very beholden to the Israeli government, to such an extent that they refuse to criticize them over anything, which is why they got so mad about the DSA rally in New York because they don't want to acknowledge the Palestinians. They don't want that to even be mentioned or talked about at all. And they basically have taken the religion associated with the country of Israel, Judaism, and tried to use that as a shield and cloaking device to get away from any criticisms about their actual actions. So if you go and read any of the statements that Cori Bush made or Ilhan Omar made or AOC made, no one is talking about Jewish people. They're talking about the Israeli government's apartheid state and its very awful treatment of Palestinians. And this is not something that Scott has any time for, because he's just another Israel government-loving conservative. I shouldn't even say conservative, just politician, because that's what they do. They all bend the knee for these foreign countries that participate in activities that if they were done over here, we'd be condemning them. So him trying to blame Biden for this is really dumb, again, because there's no evidence of that transaction having anything to do with what happened here. Scott's other interesting comment is where he says, "We must be crystal clear. We stand with Israel." Actually, no, that's Biden's comment. It's funny how, like, the person I want to think about how crazy this is. So Biden comes out and says, "We stand with Israel. No excuse for what happened, etc., etc." And because Scott is like so dead set on, you must be blamed for this, he's going to condemn him for a transaction that there's no proof of any correlation with this attack, and for the remarks of other people that happen to be in his own party. And really, this whole story could be called Tim Scott's Israel guilt by association trip. Because when he tells the members of the DSA that are in Congress, you need to repudiate the people who are cheering on deadly terrorism or be expelled, he is saying, hey, look, I know you didn't go to the rally. I know if in one case you even condemned the rally. But because you are part of this whole group, you need to just quit it altogether or risk being expelled. And it's like, what are they getting expelled for Congress from? Did they break some law, violate some kind of written code? No, just you said you didn't go as far as I would like you to in your repudiation of the DSA. And think about how crazy this is. The same guy who wants members of Congress that happen to be part of the DSA to be expelled from Congress if they don't condemn this group is the exact same person who is completely unwilling to speak up about the fact that the front runner of his party for their presidential nomination has 91 criminal charges in 4 states. So the guy who's trying to do the whole thing of these politicians must face repercussions for their actions, he'll put more aggression into responding to lawmakers he wants to, like, do things in response to stuff they themselves did not say than he will the most recent president from his own party, who is facing almost 100 criminal charges. You can't make this stuff up. So this is a really just insane response by Scott. I think he's trying to court some part of the voters. I don't know who's, but I guess what's interesting is that there's a lot of conservatives, like not conservative politicians. I'm not even gonna try and act like this is just a one part thing, but I've noticed that there's a lot of regular conservative voters that if you actually sat them down and you talked about how the Israeli government, like a lot of other institutions, whether you're talking about the NRA or any of these like anti-climate change groups, how they have these people that represent them who pay off politicians to take positions that are so much in their favor that it almost becomes unnatural, and how the Israeli government, because it treats Palestinians like dirt, has to invoke imagery of the very unfortunate events of the Holocaust and actual like anti-Semitic acts that have happened in history to try and mask away its own acts of hatred, referring to the Israeli government, towards this group of people that happens to reside close by. I feel like if you spoke to regular voters, they would get it. But they have these politicians that just like Tim Scott are basically sticking their fingers in ears and going, no, 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 anti-Semitism. You don't like Israel. Like, no one is talking about Jewish people. No, I have never seen a single comment from AOC, from well, Bernie is Jewish. That's the funny thing. Like we're so anti-Semitic. We wanted a Jew to be president in 2020. But yeah, it's just sad watching these people have like power and sound this stupid. But it's not a surprise.